Hi everyone and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial what we're going to do is we're going to create an arrow function that has two parameters. I just want you to get a bit more experience with arrow functions. So we're going to create two different functions um, that essentially will be defined with two parameters. We're just going to create one arrow function that just takes in two numbers as arguments, adds them together, and then returns them just for practice. And then we're just going to do like a very basic story function. We just pass in two strings, for example. Just so you're getting experience with arrow functions with two parameters with, two different data types. So for the add numbers function, we've seen the arrow syntax now a few times. You can use the keyword const, okay? And then you give your function a name. So add numbers. Note that we don't need to say the function keyword. That's not how we're really going to be doing it anymore in this course, because arrow functions, as I say, are the more modern way of writing them. Then you have your parentheses. This is where you're going to put in your parameters. Then we have our equal sign and our chevron, which together make up what everyone calls the little arrow there. Then you have your opening and closing curly brace, and we write our code in there. So everything in here will be the code that executes when someone calls this function add numbers. Now, we know we need to define two parameters, so I would just call them number one and number two. So we've seen how to put parameters in here before. I know all we need to do is just return. It's the same, relatively basically the same syntax you do in a regular function declaration. It's just return number one plus number two, i.e. whatever arguments have been passed in. You're just going to return those. So these are the parameters, and we need to return number one plus number two. So just type out number one plus number two. So this function's really about the syntax of arrow functions. Hopefully this all makes sense by now in the course. So we've used the const keyword. We've given our function a name, add numbers. Add numbers has been, we've got this little equal sign here. And then we've got the opening and closing parentheses. And in between here we define parameter 1 and parameter 2, and we call them number 1 and number 2. Then we have a little equal sign chevron, opening and closing curly brace, semicolon to end the statement, and we just return number 1 plus number 2. So what I could do is, I could say let results be equal to the add numbers arrow function and just pass in two numbers. So we'll say hypothetically we want to calculate how much we spent this weekend. We went to Walmart and spent $75 in groceries, and then we went out and spent $90 drinking Budweiser, because I like Budweiser. I actually do, by the way. Then we just console.log the results. So how much did we spend this weekend? Let's find out. I didn't actually go out this weekend, by the way, and I get Walmart to deliver. I don't even go. But $165 is what we spent. Okay, awesome. So that is an arrow function with two parameters. Congratulations. Let's do another one where we just tell a story. Maybe we'll just do like name and city. Like Jessica went to Paris. So what we could do is we could say const tell story. And again, we have our equal sign, then our parentheses, then our equal sign chevron, which makes up the arrow, opening and closing curly brace. Okay? So basically, we'll just say name and city. And what we'll do is we'll just basically log out to the console. We'll say console.log whatever they've passed in. So we'll do it as a template literal. So I'm going to use the backtick beside the number one. So just say whatever name is passed in. So we're going to use the template literal. So to embed a variable, we have our $sign curly braces. So we'll say name went to see the beautiful city of, and then $sign curly braces, and then city. Okay. So basically, if we call or invoke, well, do I want to log it out to the console or do I want to return it? Okay, we can return it. Just say return. And okay, so tell story. So we'll say let story, that variable, be equal to the tell story function, and we're going to pass in, we'll say Jessica, and she went to Rome. Okay, So hopefully all this makes sense. We've used the const keyword. We've given our function a name. It's called tell story. Once again, note the use of camel case. The second name, I suppose, is part of the variable. It's uppercase. So lowercase a, uppercase n, lowercase t, uppercase s. Then we have our equal sign. We have our opening and closing parentheses. Comma separate the two parameters we've defined. We have our equal sign and chevron. I am making up that cool little arrow. We have our opening and closing curly brace. And all this function does is it just returns, okay, this template literal. So basically, we just embed the arguments passed into the sentence. So it will be name variable, went to see the beautiful city of city variable. And when I call or invoke the function here, I store it inside of story. And we can just log that out to the console then. Console.log story. Okay, so what's happening is we are calling the function. We're passing in Jessica as name and Rome as city. So it will be Jessica went to see the beautiful city of Rome. We store that in the variable called story, and then we just log out story to the console. So if I just save and refresh, we get Jessica went to see the beautiful city of Rome. Okay, awesome. So guys, that was arrow functions in JavaScript with two parameters being defined in the function. That was awesome. I'll see you in the next one. We're going to start doing some more interesting stuff now.